Hello. I'm glad you made it. Welcome back from seeing Black Bag. Thank you so much for going to the movies with me and seeing Black Bag, Black Bag, Black Bag, Black Bag, Black Bag. It was a very, very interesting action film, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. And I think even just calling it an action film is already sort of disingenuous. I thought it was going to be an action film. That was my impression based on the trailer. It seemed like a government spy thriller. I thought for sure that we were going to be getting some like really intense fight scenes and stuff. And well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all, in fact, and that was really weird. So let's talk about it. And since you and I just saw it together, of course, we don't have to worry about spoilers or anything like that. We can just speak freely about the movie. But in case anyone is listening to our conversation, and they haven't seen the movie yet, they might want to stop eavesdropping and just listen to someone else, because you and I, we know what happened, and we're going to be discussing it here shortly. And so the first thing that I did really want to discuss about this movie was the fact that it was not an action film. I don't think there was a single fight scene in the whole movie, except for the very, very end, when someone dies. And you could hardly call that a fight scene. It's just somebody gets shot, And I don't think I expected that going into it. And so I had to readjust my expectations, I guess, for the film. I actually saw it quite a few days ago, and I just didn't really know what my thoughts were. I had to sit with it a little bit because it was so different than what I thought the movie was going to be. And this movie is not about government spy, thriller, action, moles. It has all of that in it, but it's not about that. It's about relationships. It's about honesty within relationships, and how can you trust your partner? And they just said it in this spy thriller type world, because that is an interesting world, right? You've seen those spy shows or things where your partner works in the CIA, and so you have to lie to them about what you do. You can't come home from work and be like, "Hey, honey, what'd you do at work today?" Like, you can't talk about it. Or you could even go a step further. Shows like Alias, back in the day, where they actually had to lie about what they did entirely. So their partner actually thought that they had a different job, thought they like worked at a bank or something. I'm spilling my coffee. And it's an interesting sort of setting, I suppose, for to talk about this trust that you'd have with your partner, especially, if you're married and in a relationship, that type of thing. And that's sort of the vibe that this movie was going for, I think. And essentially, they all work for this government entity, agency, whatever. I don't think the movie did a very good job of explaining exactly what their jobs were and what they did and all of that. But the point was that they all worked in this somewhat secretive type organization in the government. And if their partner or if anyone in the organization asked them about something that they that was classified, you could just say black bag, and essentially that meant, hey, this is classified. I can't talk to you about this, even though you're my wife, even though you're my husband. This is just part of the job that we do, and we can't talk about it. And what we learn very early on in the movie is that this makes it very easy to lie to your partner, because you could cheat or whatever. And if your partner's like, hey, where were you last night? You can just be like, black bag, and not tell them. And they just have to accept that because of the vibe of the job, you know. And I think and that essentially puts you in this position of, do you trust your partner or do you not, when they essentially have a free, easy way to lie to you. And so they kind of play with this idea in the sense that they all work at this like spy place, and then there's like this mole, right? And in these movies where there is like, there's some spy agency and there is this mole and people are trying to figure out who the mole is, they obviously like feel like they can't trust anyone because they're like, oh my gosh, there's a mole. But now it's all these people who are like married and they're partners, and at the very beginning, he's given that list where his wife is on the list of potential moles, and it's like, shoot, have I been deceived? Like, is my partner deceiving me? This type of thing. And as it goes through the movie, there's many things, many moments talking about infidelity, cheating, and not being 100% sure about everybody that you're in the room with, including your own partner, your own wife. And so he's suspect of his wife from the very beginning, and then his wife is given reason to be suspect of him. And it's kind of interesting because the villain of the movie is sort of playing off of that, is making everybody suspicious of everybody because they know that they can do that, because in this world of black bag and not being able to tell people what you're doing, it does make everybody look a little bit suspicious. So everybody's walking around like, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. But everybody is, and so they're trying to figure that out, and it's interesting in that way. It's interesting in those like interpersonal like dynamics and all this kind of stuff. But the thing that I didn't like about it is it didn't seem like the stakes were very high. And I think the reason for that is because they didn't really do a great job of talking about like what the mole was doing. Like, sure, they stole this thing called Severus, and it was gonna like blow up a nuclear reactor or something like this, but they didn't really elaborate much on it. That was sort of just like glossed over real quick, like, oh yeah, essentially somebody stole this and something really bad could happen. And because they didn't spend a lot of time on it and it was just dialogue, they didn't really show you it. It just didn't feel like the stakes were very high. And I feel like if we as the viewer felt like the stakes were a lot higher, if we were really concerned about Severus throughout the film, and these people were getting closer to using it or something, I feel like we would have really been more invested in the characters and finding out who the mole was and finding out who did this and why they did this and all that. But realistically, there was no stakes. At least in my opinion, I didn't feel like we cared that much about what Severus was or what it could do or anything like that. We kind of just cared from the very beginning as, is Michael Fassbender's wife a mole? Because he seems to really love her, and we wanted to know if she was the bad guy, or whatever. And I think the movie had a really cool ending or idea of them being pitted against each other and them finding out that they were both being played, and then them working together to take down the bad guy. I really liked that whole aspect. I just wished it felt like they had really accomplished something by the end of the movie, when instead it just felt like, okay, we did this thing, we shot this dude. Like, it just didn't feel like they won that much. And I think, like I said, that's just because the stakes weren't high enough. And that was one of the first things that we learned in screenwriting class, like back in college, freshman year of college. First thing we learned in screenwriting class was raise the stakes, raise the stakes, raise the stakes. And I'm not saying that this movie didn't have high stakes. It did, like blowing up a nuclear reactor and killing a whole bunch of people. Like, yeah, that sucks. But it just wasn't communicated to us as the viewer in a strong enough way. Like, maybe if they had already used Severus to blow up a nuclear reactor and they had like shown us that and shown us the death and devastation, and then we were afraid of them doing it again, like maybe then it would have felt like the stakes were higher. But it just felt like they sort of just had this unlimited amount of time to figure out who the mole was. They were just like, let's just take our time, let's plan this fancy dinner, let's cook these meals, let's invite everybody over. No, we don't need to do the polygraph test yet. Let's just see if we can suss it out. And none of that made it feel urgent that we, solve this problem and, get Severus back or find the mole or all this stuff. And then, because of that, towards the end of the movie, it just didn't feel like we accomplished anything. And so I agree. I watched somebody else talking about it, and I agree that, like, it didn't feel like when you left the movie, you sort of forgot about the entire movie within like 5 minutes. Nothing really stuck with you because it didn't feel like anything was accomplished. And if nothing's accomplished, then like, what are you supposed to remember? What are you supposed to feel great about, And it ended up just feeling like, oh, okay, these spies figured out these people had this thing against them and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I didn't love the movie because of that. It just didn't leave you with this epic feeling. However, there was some really good filmmaking. I thought the cinematography was beautiful. I thought the acting was wonderful. A lot of like symbolism and stuff that was really well done. I didn't really like the polygraph exam scene. I thought it was really boring. And it didn't really give us any information that we didn't already have or already suspect. And the therapy scenes also, I felt like, didn't really give us what we were looking for, or maybe they just dragged on too long. And so, yeah, this is going to be kind of a short review here. I don't know if you had any deeper thoughts on this, but it felt mid. It felt mid. I definitely think it could have been better. And it sucks, I guess, to see such a high caliber like film, high caliber actors, high caliber cinematography. It sucks to see everything about a movie be really high caliber and then to just walk away from it and like, it was okay, But yeah, I think that's my thoughts at the end of the day on this one. Yeah. Let me know if you see it and what you think. And if it's your favorite film of all time, tell me why I'm wrong. Bye. Thanks for watching.